Hello, my name is Kyle Sinclair. I'll be doing a video tutorial on all the different types of maps and how they work in a game engine and what their uses are. So first off, I'll be starting by diffuse map. So this one will be probably a short one because the diffuse map is one of the most basic maps. And so I got here my low poly model, and I got my high poly model here, and I baked it on. I used a skylight here, which is essentially a light that represents sky, and the reason why I use that is because I want the most light on this object as possible, because I don't want any shadows that will give a bad impression in the game engine. I want everything lit as much as possible. So I also used a white material, and then I projected my high poly onto my low poly, and I got my ambient occlusion map here, and this is what it looked like here. Just turn this on. This is what it looked like after I finished rendering. It also rendered out my normal map. And let's see here. This is basically what it just gave me for my normal map. I'll be going into my normal maps later and adding more detail and whatnot. But for now, diffuse and my ambient occlusion. So this is my ambient occlusion. It helps texturing, because when I set this down to multiply, it'll give me the detail still, and I can just overlay materials and it'll give me a really nice detailed mesh, and that's less texturing for me that I have to do. And so I got my final diffuse map here, and we're gonna open the Unreal Editor, and this is the January build that I'm using of 2011. This is what you get when you open it up. You're welcome to UDK. Just close this out. This is your content browser. This is where you import all your stuff. You create your material. You create your particles. You create everything. So we're gonna start a new package. I'm gonna call this package mapping demo. Hit OK, and don't need that. Alright, so in here, as you can see, I already imported all my stuff. I'm just actually gonna delete this all and re-import it so you guys can see what I did. Alright, so got our package here. Now we're gonna hit import at the bottom. We're gonna find our model, and when you import an object, when you import a mesh or something, you have to export it as an ASE2 or a .ase. The reason for this is because this is one of the only type of files that the Unreal Engine will accept, and so you can't use the .obj, you can't use anything else. You got to use an ASE. It's the most compatible, so I'd recommend sticking with that. There's other file types, but just use an ASE. So we're gonna hit open, select our group, make sure our naming conventions are proper, and hit import our diffuse, and you gotta save your diffuse out as a targa. Don't save it out as a JPG or JPEG or whatever else. And when we import our diffuse map, make sure you don't touch any of the settings. All the settings have to stay exactly how they are. And set this group to textures. Okay. And now we have to create our new material. Now we already have our diffuse. You can't simply just paste it on because we gotta add our normal map and everything else. So we gotta hit right click on the content browser anywhere in the space. Go right click, new material. Name this MappingDemoDiff. And then this will come up. And this is basically just your texture mapping material. If I can shrink this down, there we go. Now, in order to add new materials, your diffuse and everything else, you have to select your texture that you want to use. Go back and then hold T and left click, and that'll bring up your diffuse map. Now if you hold Control and left click, you can move your texture around, and then you use the black to plug it in to your diffuse, and then you should have your material pop up here, and you can left click to move around, left click here to move around. You can right click to zoom in and out, and if you hold L and left click, you can move the light around too in the viewport. So we're just gonna leave it like that and close this out, save it, and then we're gonna go into our mesh, and if this opens, there we go. You should have something that looks like this, and same thing for here. Left click to zoom in and out, right click to move around, and you'll notice that it doesn't have a material on it. And not only that, but also you have no thumbnail there, so you don't know what you're looking at. So you want to go up to Tool, save thumbnail angle, and then we'll have a better view of what we're looking at in our content browser. So now we need to apply material to this. So we're going to go back into our textures folder, select our mapping demo material, and where is it? This one. And we're going to hit this little arrow here, right under material, under all these options here. Hit that, and then you'll have your material on that as well. And you can move the lighting around here too by holding L and left clicking. So we can close these windows down here. We're gonna save out our package. Now it didn't come up, but when you want to save your package, you have to save it under the folder of the Unreal development kit. So I saved it under environments. If you save it anywhere else, the Unreal editor won't find it, and then when you save it, all your work will just basically disappear. Now if you want to save it somewhere else, you can also go save as, and then you can save it to your destination, and this will save your level, and once you open your level, all your contents will be there as well. So we're just going to save this so we don't lose any work. And now, I don't know why this is here, delete this. Now we're going to place our mesh into the Unreal Engine. Just drag and drop, close the content browser. And another thing I should probably go over is if you don't have your content browser open as soon as you open the game, up here is where you can open it, or you can use Control-Shift-F to open it. So now in the Unreal Engine, right click to move around, left click to move back and forth and look left and right. If you hold right click and you use WASD, you can move around like a first person shooter. So that's basically pretty much covers it. If you want to add lighting, hold L and left click on the mesh to drop it on the mesh. If you don't drop it on the mesh, you'll get it right in front of your screen. So we're gonna add some lights here, make it look a little more better. I didn't put in the normal map yet. Usually you want to, if you have your normal map ready, you want to put everything in as soon as possible. You want to put your mesh in as soon as possible and your diffuse, so you can constantly see updates of your mesh and see if there's any problems in the Unreal Engine. Because if you're going through your mesh or your textures in your 3D package like Blender or 3ds Max or Maya, problems may not pop up like they would in the Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine is going to be the final build. You're not going to play your game in Blender or 3ds Max or Maya. You're going to play it in the Unreal Engine or Crysis Engine or what have you. So you always want to put it into the game engine as soon as possible to see if there's any problems with it, with the UVs or anything like that. And so keep that in mind. If you want to go into your properties where we have our light selected, hit F4 and we can change your light color. I'm going to change this down to yellow, give it a bit of a sun color. I'm going to leave the shadows on, going to make another light, and it didn't do what I wanted it to do there. Let's delete this. There we go. Change this to blue, color of the sky, crank it down a bit. Change the brightness. There's quite a few settings in here that you can play around with. The shadow quality, the bloom, stuff like that. A lot of time in here was spent because there's so much you can do in here. Close this out. So here's our mesh. We have our lights. We have everything we need. In one of the later chapters, I'll be going over collision mesh, so you can actually play around with your objects. So when you hit Alt F8, which will spawn you inside, you won't drop right through your mesh and your character will die. Another thing you can play with is your world properties. This is always fun to play with. You have your bloom, you have your motion blur, enable scene effect. That's all the effects inside your scene. Ambient occlusion here. Always keep that on. We'll give it better shadows, and I got our depth of field DOF. There's a lot of stuff you can play with here. One of the things that I like to play with is the scene desaturation. If you turn this up to, let's leave it at 0.4. Actually, we'll go 0.6. You can basically desaturate your whole map, and this is what the techniques that games like Gears of War use to use to get that grainy, grimy look into their games. And then they go into their scene highlights, scene midtones, and scene shadows. And XYZ is RGB. So if you turn this down, the color will appear more vibrant. And we can turn this back up. Alright, that didn't work out too well. So as you can see, just play around with the options, and you can quickly get something cool looking, something grimy. And I'm just going to leave this like this. I don't want to spend too much time in this. Another thing you can play with is, let's see here. Yeah, I think we'll just leave the rest for now. We're going to get into light mappings and stuff like that too, so that's later on. So that pretty much concludes the first video. As far as other engines go, I don't know if you can do the same stuff that I was just doing. Once the Crisis 2 engine comes out, I'm sure I'll get my hands on that and create some videos for that too, so stay tuned for that. So next we'll be covering the specular and maybe the normal mapping. That should be coming soon, so stay tuned.